Hey listeners, discover Mixed Up Clothing, a unique children's wear brand that celebrates the beauty of cultures through vibrant, everyday style. Founded by Sonia Smith Kang, a critical care nurse turned fashion designer and community advocate, Mixed Up Clothing is all about celebrating the beauty of cultures, stories, and traditions that make us who we are. Mixed Up Clothing brings the world to life through colorful, everyday style. From Asian designs to vibrant Caribbean prints, rich textiles of Africa, and trims from everywhere in between, their fashion acts as a mirror, helping every child see themselves in the world around them, reflected with pride. We want everyone to know about this incredible brand. Check them out at mixedupclothing.com and at Mixed Up Clothing on social media channels.
It was at this time period where folks were like, but you don't look black. Oh, wait, so you speak Spanglish, so are you really Latina? So there was all this kind of, they were confused about me.
Yeah.
And so I think, and as someone who was trying to navigate, identity during that teenage time of, I need to fit in. That's a time, a challenging time. So, I think I definitely would say that it hit me. I always kind of said I was Black and Mexican, or or mixed or whatever. But it was when folks were like, "I don't get it. Explain more."
Welcome to episode 14 of the Multiracial podcast. I am your host, Antonio Fernandez. Today, we are honored to have Sonia Smith Kang with us. Sonia's journey is a testament to the beauty and complexity of multiracial and multicultural identity. Born to an African-American father and a Mexican-American mother, Sonia's upbringing in diverse environments from Puerto Rico to Hawaii and Los Angeles shaped her unique perspective on identity and belonging. As a third culture kid, Sonia navigated the challenges of being multiracial, often grappling with societal expectations and stereotypes. But there was always something in her that knew being multiracial was a special gift. Sonia's story is not just about overcoming adversity, but also about celebrating the richness of her heritage. Her experiences have fueled her passion for creating spaces where multiracial and multicultural individuals can see themselves reflected and celebrated. Through her work as CEO of Mixed Up Clothing, Sonia brings cultural representation to the forefront, blending fabrics and designs from around the world to tell stories of heritage and identity. Join us as we explore Sonia's journey, her insights on parenting multicultural children, and her innovative approach to culture-proofing her home. Sonia's dedication to empowering others through education and storytelling is truly inspiring, and we are excited to share her story with you. Sonia, welcome to the Multiracialverse. How are you doing?
I am doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. You are very busy, a lot of great things going on in your life. With your business, and we'll get to talking about those. But at first, let's start with your own personal story, which is also very, very important to your business. So tell us about your childhood, where you were born, and your parents' background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I love it. So it always sounds like when people ask about that, I'm like, it was a cold and chill, how far do we have to go?
Yeah.
But yes, my multicultural story starts with my parents. My father's African American, and my mother's Mexican American. They were both in the military when they met. They were in the Air Force. So they were stationed on Puerto Rico.
Oh wow!
And so got married. My sister was born in Puerto Rico, and then I followed shortly thereafter, also in Puerto Rico. And so we stayed there a very short amount of time because then my parents were transferred, and so then we were stationed on the Hawaiian island of Oahu.
Oh wow!
Where we welcomed a few years later my brother, who was born on Oahu. And so there we were. We're kind of considered third culture kids,
Yeah.
which is where you're kind of in a place where that it's not of your culture, and military kids kind of fall under that same kind of category. So I'm considered a third culture kid. I'm multiracial, multicultural, and I just had amazing places that allowed me to call home. And so that was kind of the early, beginnings of the making of who I am. Yeah.
And so, were your parents? Was your mother first generation born in the U.S. or second generation? How did they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because they're one of the the families that we talk to, and that happen to be here like when this was Mexico. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like
wow, wow, that's
yeah.
amazing.
So there are
Yeah.
generations of us that were here. Her father has native roots by way of New Mexico, and
Oh,
so
wow.
he is Mescalero Apache
Wow.
by way of New Mexico. So yeah, so there was a lot of talk and tradition and culture growing up that I just thought everybody did. Like
Yeah.
everybody kind of
Yeah.
talked about it. So which I bring up my grandparents because they were such a huge part
Mm.
of growing up. After we left Hawaii, we came to Los Angeles, which we call the mainland, and so we moved in with my grandparents, so my maternal grandparents. So that was the Mexican kind of heritage and culture that was the bulk of my kind of growing up.
And just really quick, I ask everyone this: if their parents are also mixed race or multiracial relationship.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
did they talk about being a multiracial couple when they were younger? Like, was it something that did they say that they found people there was any friction against, or even from family? Did you hear about anything from them?
Yeah, I think that that thread kind of ran through their relationship, and the thread was one of so in this case, it's an interracial marriage, right?
Hmm.
And so they, just as a kind of asterisk and kind of putting a date on it, they got married at a time just a few years after, the the Loving v. Virginia decision, which allowed for interrace marriages to now be legal. So they that was the kind of time period. I just want your audience to put a time period on it. It was during the time of just after the Loving v. Virginia anti-miscegenation kind of laws were struck down. So so they were married under this kind of time period that wasn't always gentle and nice and kind to those who believed in a love is love kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And so I know for sure they did receive some challenge being an interracial uh, couple. So I think that was definitely something that I remember hearing about, even from my Latino side. I remember hearing some derogatory, things growing up. And so, especially after my parents divorced, and we left Hawaii, I think that was definitely there. I think that kind of, um, challenge was there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that vulnerable time for them. And also, I'm reading a book about that too right now, and it's amazing. Like, we just think it's like everything being multiracial, like you said, we think that, oh, it's just always been okay and everything's just fine and dandy. And it's interesting the path that multiracial couples have had to, the journey that they've had to go through over the years. Yeah. How old were you? Were you doing school at all in Hawaii?
Yeah. We did kindergarten there, school up until kindergarten there, and that was on the base. So
Okay.
we lived on base, and so that was our education there. And I just have I know, my kids are always surprised that I have these memories of that time period, and I had some lovely memories going to school there.
Was it pretty diverse, the crowd you were going to school with on
Right.
the base?
Yeah. As far as I remember, yeah, because again, these are all military families, and
Yeah.
so that were stationed on the base. So yeah, it's very diverse.
And culturally at home, were you speaking Spanish? Was that a first language? Was your mother speaking Spanish to
No, it
you?
wasn't until we
Yeah.
moved in with my grandparents that
Oh, okay.
we Spanish was heard, and my siblings and I, of course, in order to kind of listen in on what the grown-ups were saying, we listened in and we learned some Spanish, and so yeah, that it wasn't until coming to California that Spanish was. I mean, because the formative kind of the early Spanish speaking was when I was very young in Puerto
Okay.
Rico. So it
Okay.
went from,
Yeah. Yeah.
hearing Spanish in Puerto Rico just from around us to Hawaii, uh, and then California. So,
Right on. And how old were you when your family moved to California?
yeah, I was young. So, that kindergarten-y, first grade. So, yeah, but probably 5, 6, 7.
Oh, right on. And
Yeah.
which part of Southern California, right? What did you
Correct.
move to?
We're
Yeah.
in Southern California, Los Angeles, so specifically. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so then you continued your schooling there, public school or
Yeah, so my grandparents lived in a predominantly a Latino, and just on the, also there was a strong African American community, and Japanese community. Here in Los Angeles, this was at the time of redlining and folks that were
yeah.
able to buy homes, right? And so here in Los Angeles, the lining and all the home buying was restricted to certain areas. So Pacoima is one of those areas here in Los Angeles that was kind of designated where, so you'll see a lot of Japanese Americans, African Americans, Latinos
Yeah.
in this area because that's where they were, allowed to buy
Yeah, yeah,
homes. So
that's
yeah.
it. Wow, wow. And growing up with this diverse mix, how did this affect your identity? How did you identify? I know it changes with language and terminology, and as we get older and we understand more and become more self-aware. But tell us a little bit about that experience being mixed race. When you were younger.
Yeah. So again, I feel like I've always kind of thought growing up that that's just what it was. You had neighbors. So behind us, we had an acre home, acre land. My grandparents, and our backyard had the Sakamoto farm. It was, our neighbors were Japanese Americans. We had the Japanese Cultural Center. And then again, they spoke Spanish, because there was like a farm. And, so there I was in this kind of space where on the weekends we would go see my cousins dance ballet folklorico, right? And then there was always something going on in the neighborhood, in the public school. It was a great time. It wasn't until maybe middle school that my identity was kind of called into question, and I started kind of having to grapple more because, as a teenager,
Yeah.
I'm sure I wasn't alone in, trying to find who you were. right? And
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
was at this predominantly Latino middle school. That my surname is Smith.
Hmm.
So when roll call was being done, against the backdrop of Latino surnames, there was this one Sonia Smith who they couldn't understand, what that name was. Is she white? Is she this? I think that's kind of where the questioning started.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when I would say, I'm black and Mexican, then it became, wait. And then that's kind of where, the questions came. It was like, wait, I don't understand. So does that make you Puerto Rican? And you're like, wait, I know I was born in Puerto Rico, but so it was
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
I think I was made, had to learn quickly, um, which, and I think it's important here to kind of talk about, um, why it's so important to build the language. Like when we get to that section,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I want
totally.
I want us to kind of, put a pin right here and remember. So it was at this time period where folks were like, but you don't look black. Oh, wait, so you speak Spanglish, so are you really Latina? So there was all this kind of, wait, so it was, they were confused about me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think, and as someone who is trying to navigate, identity during that teenage time of, I need to fit in,
Yeah, yeah.
that's a challenging time. So, yeah, I think I definitely would say that it hit me. Um, I always kind of said I was black and Mexican, or
Yeah, yeah.
or mixed or whatever. But it was when folks were like, I don't get it. Explain more. And so then that kind of stuck at me.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And I came into to putting this podcast together, and I say I had a very myopic view because of my own experience. And as we meet, multiracial, multicultural experiences are so rich with so much, hidden in them, that I was like, wow, I've been blown away. And I'm kind of a little bit blown away because you were going through that. I grew up in a place that was predominantly white. So, and it's interesting. I'm probably a little bit older than you, but was it at the time too? You were probably a youth at the time when everybody was just being called Mexican too, right? Like there was this weird thing that the United States went through. It seems like it's maybe coming back around a little bit, but where Mexican was just like the only Latin X or Latino Hispanic
Yeah, yeah.
person that people knew, right?
Yeah, it's very and I say all that because you're absolutely right. I think the language growing up has changed,
Yeah.
and it's also regionally. My father is from the Bronx, New York. So when we went to visit him, of course, the Latino there, they didn't really know what Mexican. It was more, of course, Dominican or Puerto Rican there. So I
Mm-hmm.
think definitely regions play into it, and then also the neighborhoods you're the community that surrounds you. All of those have uh, a place where they've kind of shaped who you are. And so where I was, it was very, Latino dominated, and the language it was at a time where Chicano versus
Mm.
Latino versus, Mexican. So it was kind of those kind of language that was,
Yeah.
what does it
Yeah.
mean? And I think even within the Latino community, there are folks that you could tell maybe what generation they came up,
Yeah.
right? Because some of them will say, I'm Chicano or I'm this or you
Yeah.
know. Um, so I think that all in talk about richness, right? It all kind of
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
into the richness of why it's so important to celebrate all those parts of the Latinidad,
Yeah.
and the diaspora, whether it's the Latino diaspora, or the African diaspora, in my case. So I think that's, but it definitely was. I thought you were going with, we grew up at a time where was very Farrah Fawcett.
It was that too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of,
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell my kids that I grew up at a time of everybody kind of coming out of the Valley Girl,
Yeah. Yeah.
Charlie's Angels, blonde hair, feathered hair, and there, I was this curly haired, brown skin, Smith, but yet, and to kind of put the backdrop on what was happening around us, even in,
Yeah. Yeah.
in the images that we were seeing, I think is very important when we
Yes.
talk about, what it was that maybe, not necessarily triggered, but the word I'm looking for is activated. Okay. So kind of activated your, like the messaging we were seeing was the blonde hair, blue eye, feathered hair, or whatever, like who, and here I was as someone who didn't look like that, but also
Yeah.
didn't look like maybe the classroom around, folks around me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's kind of that point where I was like, oh, shoot, who am I? This whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I always kind of go back to when I go and I give talks like this and I'm talking to folks, I always say like what I would tell my 13-year-old self, because that's the point when I know I was there going, all right, this is kind of what I need to be working on, or
Wow. Wow.
what is kind of hitting me. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. Like, what did that look like, though? What did that look like to have that? The culture, the American culture around us was blonde, blue-eyed, and you were mixed race, multiracial. You like had this light bulb moment go on of, oh, wait a second. And so, what did the journey at that point to your identity look like for you?
Yeah. For me, it meant erasing a part of the story that I told. So in order for me to fit in my mind, okay, this isn't, and again, I always kind of try to put this disclaimer on that, when I'm doing conversations like this, that this was mine. This was mine.
Yes.
And even though I had siblings who were exactly the same makeup, you know what I mean? They walked in life differently. So all that to say is, although we may have similarities within the multiracial or, multi-generational mixed race kind of community, I really want to talk about, my individual piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, for sure. And I think, folks may pick up on parts of it and, need to exit on parts of it. And that's totally fair. I came in, where I even asked my mom if I could use her last name.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was something that kind of struck her, and so there was a part in a time period where having to face those kind of questions I wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, save that piece as a parent. As a parent, this is one of those moments where you're like, how can I help my mixed race child and so I'm hoping the story that folks hear and the messaging that they hear is why we need to talk about it so early. Because if it hit me at 13, there might be other people who see it earlier. So that's why language is so important. And kind of, I wish my parents would have maybe empowered me a little bit more with the language, and kind of, talked about some of those things a little bit more, so that, so I went through my, using my mom's last name, and that was for, I think, maybe ninth grade, where I still, kind of, I wince when I think about it, because it was so hard,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
for
wince
sure.
just because I'm like, why, but that was my journey. And high school, was probably a little bit, thinking a little bit more about it, but there was still not, there wasn't as much pushback, because the school is a little bit more diverse.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and then college, so we're moving up, folks. We're now at college. And college was where I was like, okay, but there were Black student unions, and then there was, the MECHA, or the Latino student union, so it was very segmented, right?
Yeah, yeah.
During that time. And so was I able to sit in both spaces?
Yeah,
And I think
yeah.
I questioned myself again. So that was when, there's these glaring times where I can point out where I felt maybe othered, or, where do I see myself, and where do others see me? And do I need that acceptance? Do you know what I mean? Like, the brain
Yeah,
was,
no, no, totally.
like the
Yeah,
brain
yeah.
is just like working.
Yeah,
And,
yeah. It's very
you know,
complex. It's super complex. Like,
it is.
especially for somebody who has more important things to do. Like, we have to like figure out what we're gonna wear and what we're at when we're like teenagers, right?
Yeah, and it was, it's this it's this kind of constant challenge. It's a lot of, energy, and
Yeah.
there's a moment where I felt, pretty alone in having to
Oh,
kind of go through having discussions like that, right? Like,
sure.
who do you tell? Like, hey guys, do I get to, should I pledge and go to, this sorority, or, that's, specifically for, this group, all these
Yeah,
different
yeah,
affinity groups. Can I sit in both equally?
yeah,
And will
yeah.
anybody look at me in the, this group as not being, and who's making those decisions? Who's,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
today we use gatekeeping as one of our, language that we've kind of we've learned about. And so, yeah, who gets to allow who into groups? It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes, yes. And just kind of in that same time frame, were you leaning towards embracing one of your cultures more than the other, or was there even an attempt at all to just assimilate and try to assimilate more into the American culture? I mean, it's all American. It gets difficult to say, but the white American culture, I guess. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think, man, I think even at that time, it was, I think it was really trying to fit with the Latino culture, I think was so I would say, for my answer, it was more fitting in with the predominant culture in my community.
Okay.
That,
Yeah.
if I had to place a hierarchy on that, so yes, the imagery that I received from, like, television, that kind of fell a little bit lower than being included in my community that was closer to me, that I had more access to.
And then did that impact in both high school and then in college? What did your peer group look like?
Yeah, so I've always kind of held this United Nations uh, kind of group, right? Definitely feel like there was, I've always been that kind of person, to, again, like I said, our neighbors and those around me. So it was very multicultural in that, at that time, for me.
And so now moving on in college, just to answer the question because you brought it up, which of the groups did you end up
Both.
navigating to, yeah, oh, you did. Awesome. And how was that? Was there any experiences that stuck out in that?
I would just say it was a constant. I think it was a challenge for that. It was a case of I'm doing it for myself. And so it is for me to enrich my life. And also, you know, so I did it very purposefully, very intentional, that I pushed through the kind of uncomfortableness that, perhaps, I definitely, I didn't see it necessarily in the Latino group just because phenotypically, I can say that, I could read Latina, right? So it was in, in the Black student groups that, maybe it was like, folks would just be a little bit more, is she, so those kind of things. So I think for me, it was a testament to just kind of overcoming the uncomfortableness within myself to say, I want to be in both. And so, so I will be uncomfortable if it means, trying to, further understand, both cultures at the same time. And that's when it started to hit me that it was important to see both and to almost atone for the not wanting to or for that challenge that I faced, that I grappled with, of talking to my mom and saying, please, I can't, I don't want to, so this was like this, if it was a movie, like that would have been my arc, right? If we were watching me as a movie, that college was my arc, where I was the protagonist says, she's gonna be all of them, that moment. It was that moment that awesome. she said, I'm gonna sit in both of these spaces until there is a, multi space. And I'm happy to say that there is now at my university, and a lot of universities across the U.S. that here in Los Angeles specifically, there's UCLA has a mixed student union, USC and Berkeley and all those have all, so I'm happy to see that, check, that part is kind of not easier, but a little gentler landing for folks.
Was college, culturally, was college just a must for you? Was it similar, to like you have to go to school mentality in your household, or
absolutely
was it? Yeah,
absolutely. There was just, it was never a doubt that my siblings and I were going to get there, and it was. It was like, but we don't know how. We don't know how you're going to do it. But my mom was very much, this, you guys got to go to college. You have to, see the world, and you have to, have that experience. So for us, our household, but, or for my siblings and I. But my grandfather had a 6th grade education. And so, he had the frijoles that he would teach us math with, right? So he was always of this mindset of a mixture of the importance of education, but also the importance of being able to work through whatever place in whether that's a blue collar or be kind to everybody, work hard, and that. So, and he had an entrepreneurial spirit as well. So for them, yes, college was very important to see outside of us and to learn. But we were always very proud of the level of success that my family has been able to achieve, even without education. For them, it was really a what makes you most happy, you know.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Was there any direction for college at all, or is that something you had to learn on your own?
As far as
Or
what, like where?
yeah, like this is how you do the college route, or was your older sister already there
Yeah,
and she kind of modeled that path?
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But this was, it's so funny. I was doing college applications for my daughter. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, like, click, 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 essay here. You know, I'm so embarrassed, but it was like, I'm doing what my mom used to do to us when I was a kid, this whole thing. But yeah, we had to go to the counselor on campus and then hope that they believed that you were college, like path and then that they would kind of help you get some of the tuition, or not the tuition, the application,
Yeah.
and deadline, because they were paper like you, and then you had
Yeah.
to either do a typewriter and like level it up to the level of the application. I mean, the amount of work and that my family just didn't know.
Yeah,
They did
yeah.
not know. They did not
Yeah.
know that, each one had an application fee. Like, you better hope you're going to get in this school if this is like where we're putting our money.
Yeah,
But yeah. So it was, it was definitely a different time. But my sister, who was a year ahead of me, she helped immensely in getting that going. And then my brother, who was younger than us, of course, had it a little bit to where, he had his two older siblings who were able to kind of guide through. So.
And so you end up in nursing. How did that happen?
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to do. I was thinking, what was it that I wanted to give back? I wanted to do that. And then I was at the University of San Francisco,
Yeah.
which again, the mecca of like diverse, at the time, it was very
Yeah, yeah.
diverse and it was very open and very, they were very, activists. I loved it and it was everything. And I had this course in nursing where it was a multicultural nursing path. And that
Oh, wow.
meant that I looked at the intersection of culture and how medicine and healthcare intersect. For instance, maybe you want a prayer rug in the room, or you want your bed turned toward Mecca, or if there's someone who passes away and your tradition is the body has to be there in a certain amount of time, those kind of things, or whether it's albondiga soup, that is your healing soup that, you want to bring in, but, maybe dietary, we ask that you low sodium, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But that interested me. And so I looked to that and felt that who else to talk about, different cultures and how they intersect with healthcare. So yeah, that's kind of what I did with nursing. It was, again, always bringing her with me, always bringing the cultura with me, always, kind of writing, that wholeness with me in kind of whatever I did.
Yeah. That's awesome. And you mentioned you had kind of that arc where you realize the complexity of your identity. At that point, with that multicultural class, do you feel, was that a seminal point in embracing both and being able to, with more assuredness in public or anywhere else, be able to say, this is who I am? Or did you feel like you were already doing that?
No, I love that. That is so good. I love that you could see that. It was almost as if it was a permission to explore the wholeness, the totality, because they broke down. It was like, it was very Asian, Latino, African American, Caucasian. And then it was like, wait a second. Then it was like this other, right? And so even in forums, you may remember even forums in school, when you'd bring it home first day of school and your parents had to fill out, and they'd be like, choose one,
exactly.
and if you didn't see it here, mark other and all those things. So, again, I want to stick that point in, that folks, you're going to see all this stuff. And in healthcare, those were the same kind of data points that they asked, right? And so my language started, not my language, my frustration and even anger kind of started, at that point of why are we subjected to just this other box?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, it made me, question, like when we got to the section on childbirth, and there's some cultures who are very stoic in their, so they want, nursing and the team to understand that even though their culture tells them that it's to be stoic, that doesn't mean not give pain medication.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we're getting data on this set of people, what about those? So do you understand? Like it just kind of hit me.
Totally.
Where am I?
Yeah.
And where are the folks that are like me? Where do they fit? And shouldn't we figure out a way? To include that.
Did you know or talk to a lot of other multiracial people when you were in college, or was it?
Yeah, I don't think I know we were there.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily saw that very much. It was really I think I didn't see that very much in for a long time. Like just this, it wasn't until I came back to Southern California from Northern California after nursing school that, and then, the World Wide Web came out and I was like, trying to figure out, mixed race, blah, blah, blah. And then, all of a sudden, like things were now being discovered and I found an organization, that dealt specifically with mixed race folks. And I was like,
oh, wow.
And so this was at least now, decades ago. And I joined the organization. They happened to be in Los Angeles. I went to one of the meetings and I was hooked. I was like, there y'all are. Like, I mean, and so I became, again, fascinated with hearing other people's journeys, even though, again, they may not have been exactly like mine. So whether it was a mix of, so here I was on this, in this group, and there was a Japanese Greek girl. And Japanese Black and Native, all the, and I was like, whoa, yeah, this was amazing, to talk about those kind of things and to, to be able to, again, see folks that may not even have the same mix as you, but to have folks in community with that had, some of the highs and some of the, challenges. I really have learned, a great deal from that community, to which I now still serve. I'm vice president, and it's called Multiracial Americans of Southern California.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's fantastic. So yeah, it's great.
Excellent. And I was going to ask you, in that same vein, the importance of talking about race, because I know you mentioned something too about putting a pin in it, but also talking. We can also talk about your parenting experience that way. But the importance of being around others who you might relate to versus some people say, oh, we shouldn't talk about race at all, or I'm mixed race. We shouldn't be, that just separates people. What do you think is the importance of that recognition of being multiracial or just even talking about race?
Yeah, I believe in see us. So I tend to challenge folks who come in at I don't see race, I don't see color, I think, I think I think they think that they're trying to say the right things and be like, I love everyone. But I think what it misses is you use the word complex. So I wanna go back to that. We are complex beings. And I think there's something just so powerful and so beautiful when you can see somebody for all that they are and allowing them to come in as they are. And so I would just push back and flip it and say, when you can see somebody for all that they are, that's when, you're winning, and believe them. And if I come in and, if you do get one of those questions about what are you, or however else, those kind of questions come, like I would welcome you to see that. So I challenge folks to push back on that and to kind of say it's even more important to see somebody for who they are than to think that you're diminishing who they are by seeing them.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's just jump into your family. You're married to somebody who is another race or another ethnicity. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about where you met and a little bit about the beginning of that. Because was it from what you know from your parents, was it different amongst your friend groups or family groups that you were dating somebody? I know it's tough when you're multiracial to find somebody who's exactly the same. Almost impossible. But tell us a little bit about your husband, and then we'll talk a little bit about parenting multiracial kids.
Yeah, and so dating Sonia is very, again, that United Nations, so very equal opportunity dater. So I again fell in love with seeing the person. And so Richard is my husband. He came from New York to do his training when I was a nurse. He is first generation Korean American. So he came to the hospital that I worked in, very Grey's Anatomy, very so they met, they fell in love, they had kids, that kind of story. And so we were very intentional. Like, I was I almost am militant in my I will not let my children face what I went through this whole thing. So, and he was very I guess, what are you talking about? Doesn't everybody just love everybody? And I was just like, oh my God, this guy, like I like he didn't have necessarily that inner kind of, I think he did kind of try to find his place as a first generation. So we had some similarities in like the school lunch conversation. My grandmother made us bean burritos, and that was like our lunch, right? And he talks about like some of his cultural food for lunch and people being like, ew, what is that? So there are these similarities that we talked about when we were going to bring in children who were going to be Black, Mexican, and Korean. And so we sat down and we had like we had a discussion. And so my family did not have any challenges. I think his family maybe had a little bit more of what they hoped and kind of thought his partner, who that person was going to be.
Sure.
And it wasn't her. So, so I think there was definite time where it was like, wait a second, you raised me to love and to love everyone, but yet, now you're, kind of pushing back on who I've chosen. So there was a lot of, and I was like, oh my gosh, aren't we in the, haven't we moved beyond, this kind of thing? So I think there was definitely some strife in the beginning of kind of trying to figure out and what what you were gonna we were gonna allow to kind of happen and intrude on our partnership. And so when we started having kids, it was we already knew it was good. We're gonna help them learn English, Korean, and Spanish. And because all of it came from again, my growing up experience, where in order to fit in and I say that just because that was the outside messaging, in order for you to kind of fit into what it meant to be Latina or what it meant, like you have to follow these kind of things. And there were times when my Spanish wasn't super, so that othered me. Right? It was like, oh, wait, how can you call yourself, Latina if you don't speak or you don't look like this, or you're not lighter skin, or you don't have straight long hair. So I took all those kind of things that I stored up and I was like, all right, so we're going to teach these kids, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to, so I'm going to take that part off of off the table. And then we're going to make sure that they go to diverse schools because, I'll be damned that somebody, doesn't know how to, whatever it is, interact with them or understand that their last name is Kang, but they speak Spanish and they don't necessarily look like, my kids, the Asian gene was very strong, so they've had to like now on the flip side they have to like, wait a second, I'm also, even though phenotypically I look Asian, but I'm also my mom and I'm also my grandparents and I'm also these kind of things. So language was very important.
Wow.
And so if I walked you around my house, you'll see, Post-it notes that say refrigerator in English, Spanish, and Korean. You know what I mean? Oh, right on. And so we again, it's that being intentional and really me fighting back on 13-year-old Sonia and how can I make it better for not only my kids, but the kids, the next generation, that group. So that's kind of how the conversation between the cultures, and we definitely make sure that there's, we introduce different foods, not just within we do it across the board. Like you're gonna know there's other cultures in this world that we live in, and you're gonna know, at least you could be able to talk to them, and you're gonna be able to listen to the music on, Saturdays growing up. Vicente Fernandez ran our household. And so I'm going to introduce you to some, of that. I'm going to introduce you to, some of the other cultures through that. And if I don't know, then help me and I'm going to figure out a way. So that's just kind of been our household. We, folks that are in business understand a business plan. Our family has a family plan. And so, that's awesome. So that's kind of what we do. And so it's important.
And you have a unique name for it that I was reading about, the methodology that I'm not sure if it's self-name or if it's something that you found in books or other, the windows and doors method.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that? And then I'm going to then we'll talk about a place where, and transition into your work where you were having trouble finding any of this multi. Yeah. So let's talk about the windows and doors first, and then
I could talk about this forever, and I am so sorry. You were gonna have to edit out all this. You're like, oh my God, we're barely on her having kids. Okay, so I will go through this really quickly. So again, that family plan that I talked about. I always want to make sure that anything that is in the house, I'm going to start by calling it culture proof. We culture proof our home. And I try to make people understand the same way that you child proof your home against, when you, and people understand this. You put, the light socket covers, you put little gates up, because you wanted to protect them from injury, right? So when you culture proof your home, you're working to safeguard their identity. And so what you try to do is, the same way you used to get on the ground and be like, oh, can they touch this? Can they pull this down? Culture proofing asks you to go through your home, go through your life, and see at every touch point, are they seeing themselves? So mirrors, right?
Wow.
And if not, how do I get there? And that's the door. Right? So you're opening these doors and windows and mirrors as a way to safeguard them from having those kind of maybe traumas, perhaps, those uncomfortable aches in your stomach, and also that I had, but also on the flip side, heal that 13-year-old who that I'm like, it can now turn it around and see what it's like to parent through this lens of safeguard versus whereas times it felt like I was going to my parents' post and having them have to, comfort me after the fact. Whereas with my kids, I arm them and I strengthen them from the bottom, from the beginning up. So that when the kids are like, Kang, blah, 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 just like they were like Smith, and I'm like not caught off guard, whereas they're like, yeah, you didn't know there's people who are, who, you know what I mean? Like turn it around and
totally.
And give them the language, give them the agency is what what I'm trying to strive for, giving them agency to create their own story, to create their own, so I just try to provide all those steps, and for me it's easier to explain it in a sense that people can kind of get. You understand that a mirror is a reflection. So what is it that I'm giving them that helps when they're looking in the mirror, they can see the reflection that feels most real for them and feels explains and who they are and what they see.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that so much. And is this something that you found elsewhere, or is this something that you should say? It sounds like you should package this and like sell it. I mean,
that is hilarious. No.
Yeah.
If you record this and because this is all like, this is good.
Yeah.
You should do something. But no, that is mine.
Culture proofing is awesome. That sounds so awesome.
Do you love that?
Yeah.
Okay,
oh,
good.
I do. I love it beyond words.
Good. Like, I love it. Yeah. So that I again, medicine, even though I'm not in medicine anymore, and we will definitely talk about that real quick, I still use nursing and medicine. And so when I was doing the culture proofing, of course, the child proofing, and then when my grandparents got older, we elder proofed. So I think people they get it, right? So that's when I was like, totally. Oh, what we're doing is culture proofing, and then it made sense, and so I ran with that. So, but that is part of kind of the teaching that I do to parents who do believe in helping and I don't even think it has to be for mixed race or multiracial children. I think it's very important for us to just really, again, empower and bring our culture with us. For so long in our history, we were told that there is this hierarchy, the closer to whiteness, right?
Yes.
And so so folks are always trying to, crabs in a barrel. We're pushing down the others. If we could just, kind of see people for what they are and kind of there's space for all of us, kind of thing. So in a quick, segue, that's exactly when I was culture proofing my home that I did not see fashion. Like I'd go to the store and there was Gerber babies and there were diapers and they all had the marketing and cute little kids that did not look like my children.
Yeah,
okay?
It was it was like the two kids. I can see their faces even right now.
Yeah. So there I was having these kids that when I would take them out in the world didn't look like them. Okay, Sonia growing up with Charlie's Angels and all of that didn't look like them. So how come in this 2-3 decade has things not improved? So then San Francisco activism kicked in and there I was like, oh my gosh, they have all these wonderful clothes during special occasions. So the ballet folklorico, so the guayabera, for my husband's Korean culture, they have this special hanbok that is this beautiful traditional that you wear on your, special occasions, first birthday, whatever it is. We have that. But what about every day? What could I give my kids every day that had a piece of, cultura for them, whatever culture it was? So I learned how to sew in 7th grade. My mom sewed this whole thing. And so I was like, I would find fabric, whether it was like ankara or dashiki or mud cloth or, fabric that had piñatas on it or any, burros or whatever it was. I was like, I'm going to turn them into, shorts or a dress or diaper covers or whatever it was. And all of a sudden, I would use it as a stress reliever working as a nurse. And then all of a sudden people are like, hey, what is that your kids have on? And I'd be like, oh, this is, I don't know, piñata and blah, blah, blah. And then we'd start talking, or, oh, this is, Ankara, it's from this part of Africa, and blah, and then they'd be like, oh, we have something like that. It's called matrushkas, and there's nesting dolls, and, you know what I mean? And, And then all of a sudden, people were freely talking about culture, and I was like, I had my little Oprah moment of my aha. What if there was a way to bring fashion and clothes into the mainstream, along with stripes and along with, the blues and the pinks and the polka dots? What if we had this, this line of clothes that celebrated culture and that celebrated who we are, and in a day-to-day kind of playful way that told a story. And that's how Mixed Up Clothing was born.
That is so awesome. I love that. And so how was that? And just tell us a little bit about the evolution of the company. But also, I've worked in retail clothing before, and there's seasons, and there's also the idea that everything comes back around, and what you're creating is fresh and new, which is not maybe the style. Maybe it's a pair of bell-bottom pants but
yeah. I love that.
Yeah, tell us about it. Yeah.
Build. So yes. So definitely it is all the same, clothes that we're used to. It's very, retail is shorts, tops, bottoms, a dress, maybe, some active wear. So the silhouette you're going to recognize. It's very, but what's the differentiator is the fabric, right? So we source fabric from around the world, and each one comes with a hang tag that tells a story. So I want you to learn about the culture, and I want you to be able to, wear it on fun. A lot of our clothes are school picture day. The people love wearing our clothes for school pictures, and anything that's, May is Asian American History Month. So we have a collection that comes, my husband helped, create it, and got input from the kids on some of the, palaces that we went to go visit in Korea, some of the geometric lines. So you should be able to look at the clothes and be like, I see it. Whether it's a neckline or I have a guayabera that kids can wear every day. So you'll see the beautiful stitching, the embroidery, but it's in a little romper. So
Oh, that's cute.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I encourage folks to take a look at mixedupclothing.com and find us there on all the socials. We're really just trying to find there's a group of folks that are really leaning into culture and really allowing folks to chase and find value in brands that align, or find brands that align with their values. And so I think we're at that place in our time where we're pushing back on what America told us that we had to be, and what retail has told us it has to look like. That if we can't get into retail, we could start our own website and we can find our folks there. So we're at this this inflection point where it's if we're not going to find it on Fifth Avenue or all the marketing in marketing, we're going to create our own lanes.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's so awesome. Really quick, from a business perspective, what was one of the biggest rejections you came up against in trying to pitch this to a company or a maker, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, so I think it was definitely pitching to, and you'll appreciate this because there's buyers that you have to pitch to for large retailers, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like in business, they don't always look like you. They don't always come from the same background and neighborhoods or life experience. You talked about in the opening having a myopic view, right?
Yeah.
And so really trying to understand that and pitch differently. So I had to come in with the data, and that comes from nursing. I love data.
Yeah.
I was able to get the Latino culture is the fastest growing, or mixed race is the fastest growing, and we have trillions in buying power.
Yeah,
that's what I used. And so I shared that. And so there I was pitching against folks that didn't understand why we, in the general we, needed this. So thankfully, I had folks that I could kind of point to. There's a company called Little Libros that, made books that came in Spanish, and all of a sudden...
I love those.
Yeah. All of a sudden, they were being sold at large retailers, and you're like, do you understand why we read? We read, and we actually, we want to, see that. We want to go into a music store and have records that have Bad Bunny. You know what I mean? Like we want, or whoever it is, like we are demanding that. So when I came to them with those kind of numbers, it was hard to deny. And so even if there was a rejection, I still kind of pushed back and I said, hey, your girl was on the Today Show talking about being multiracial and starting a clothing line. And so what do you think about them apples, right? And so it was really, continuing on to kind of take those challenges, those no's, and not let them stop you, and kind of push through. And now we're in 3 large retailers and boutiques around the U.S. and thriving. So
that's awesome. Congratulations on all that. Yeah, it's amazing. Much. I love it. Thank you. And the clothing's beautiful. I love how you mix it together. I was going to ask, just out of curiosity, do you ever rename something where you're putting 2 cultures or 2 different styles of a particular type of clothing together, or is honoring the original name of it kind of part of also the product?
Yeah. You know what? You were so good. Your questions are so, I love it. I love it. Okay. So, each one is like, I'll call something like, if it's a top, and or a dress. I could call it the vestido. And I'll find a name and I'll put it in that language. So even if it's like we have a bordado outfit, so it'll have the definition, or the vestido is Italian for dress or whatever it is. So that's how I name. And then awesome. In the description, it'll say, we have frog closures, which are very prominent in Chinese garments. So I'll say the frog closure is from here. We see it as a beautiful testament to the intricate yarn work. So and so that's why it's called mixed up clothing. We mix and match cultures, and each one coming out and telling a new story. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're educating. You're always educating, and so I always end. I could talk to you for hours about all of this, and
I feel like we have. Yeah, thank you so much for being so patient with me. I'm sure we can go. I'd love to learn,
talk way more about your about parenting, and your company, but also the companies you volunteer for. But I always ask everyone, what's your recipe for world peace?
Oh goodness. And I think we said it. I think my recipe for world peace is really allowing folks to come into this life and in who they are, and really just honoring them as people. I think we're just so deserving just from being here. Like, you are deserving of taking space in this vast world. So I think the peace comes from, first, of course, comes from within, and being comfortable. How can we be comfortable with ourselves so that what you're projecting out is that peace that you want to see? So it's a loaded question, because there's all these pieces. How do I make sure that you as an individual, that's the work that you have to do and put out, and then so it's a lot. But really, I think at the end of it is really understanding who you are and being allowed and to show that in a safe space that welcomes you as an individual, as a deserving individual.
I love that. And I was just going to touch on that and say that you've done a beautiful job through your ability to, become self-aware of your identity, and then take that one step further. And you and your husband made this intentional, pact to raise your children to be able to see themselves in all these different aspects, and see these different aspects of themselves, which is so important. The self-esteem part is like the most important part of us. And I think what it says really is that if we do it from the beginning, we don't have to come back and heal ourselves from things that have happened to us, right? So I think that's kind of one of the things that I feel like your story is really, really shared. Is that
nailed it. You got it. Yeah. You got it. Preload. I always talk about that. You got to front load this. Front load your kids and be like, boom, boom, boom. And if they never need it, oh my goodness. But this is why we have the birds and the bees talk. This is why we talk about, add the culture talk to all those other important talks that you do. So thank you so much for seeing me and for allowing me to share my story. So
thank you for your time. One last question is just where can people find you at? And,
for sure. For sure. Find me on mixedupclothing.com. I am, the person behind there. So if you're sending a message, it's me. And you could find us on all socials at Mixed Up Clothing.
Yeah, and you do some volunteer work for, or you sit on the board.
Yeah, Multiracial Americans of Southern California. So they could find us there. A community that supports Multiracial Americans of Southern California. And then that's it. I think those are all my kind of
awesome
things. Yeah.
And as with our conversation, both those places. Also, too, like you were talking about, the description of your clothing are places where you will be educated and your awareness will be raised. So I love that about you. You have this innate desire to teach and educate. So thank you so much for your time. And I'm sure we'll have you back and figure out another angle, or we'll just go deeper on some of the angles we've already talked about.
I am here for part 2, whatever you need. The remix. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sonia.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
This episode of the Multiracial podcast is brought to you by Eviton Couture, a brand born from a powerful vision and a deep connection to heritage. Founded by Shinnecock brothers Jason Tech King and Wayan Moon Smith, Eviton represents resilience and pride. From handmade tie-dye to wellness-focused athletic wear, each piece is crafted with intention and positivity, smudged with sage for good vibes, and delivered to you with love. Join the Eviton family on their journey of empowerment and inspiration. Hit up Moon on Instagram at Eviton_KS. That is native spelled backwards _KS to view product and place an order. Eviton Couture. Feel the spirit of resilience in every stitch. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Huge shout out to my friend Johannes Skoda for mixing and creating the intro music, and DJ Kazam for the track.